Show. Keeping your money safe and secure. Giving you predictability. Have the retirement you deserve with our Safe Money strategy. All the financial news you need. We're here to help you succeed on your Safe Money Show.
Welcome to Your Safe Money Show. I'm your co-host, Tony Shore, and I'm here with Todd Schoberg. Todd, you are the man with the financial plan, and that's what I love about you. And you've got a great topic for us today. What could be more important than maintaining family harmony? And one way to do that is to make sure you utilize enhanced planning for your finances and for your future, right?
Absolutely. We've called it many names over the years, but this is kind of where I've sunk into a good name, and it is enhanced planning. You may have gone through it. I don't know. We don't have a big history yet, but you may have gone through an unfortunate process of losing maybe a beloved friend or parent or relative,
grandparent.
Yeah, that did not have a will or any clear instructions on how they wanted their assets divided. Mm-hmm. And you probably already know what a difficult and potentially treacherous situation that is with family members. And make no mistake, things like a will and a trust aren't exclusive territory of the rich and famous, and trusts and all the other vehicles that are available, even people with small amounts. And I always go back to my mother at this point. My mother didn't have a lot of assets, but you know what her wish was?
What's that?
Can you try to keep the family together? When I'm gone, can you have the holidays? Can you make sure that you're still friends? Well, I tell you, I've been in this business long enough, and I've been in many conference rooms where brothers and sisters have gone at each other because there was no will, there was no instruction, and mom said this and dad said this, and it's just not a good situation. So having your documents, having your plan, and I'm talking about you got to let people know what your wishes are.
Yeah. Communication is the key, because my grandfather, Todd, had a will, and he had 4 children and a wife, but what he didn't do is communicate. He was, kind of tight-lipped always about finances and personal things, and he only communicated to one, his youngest, and made that person the executor, and never was his intentions communicated openly to the group or to the other siblings. And so what that did is today, 2 of them aren't speaking.
Yeah, and I'm going to go through a couple horror stories I've had in the past when we get going into this a little bit.
Sure.
But yeah, there's no reason for that. And if you do have a comprehensive, enhanced plan, everybody's going to know everything, and you have to do it in advance. That was the word there I threw in there. I've seen the smallest of things break up families apart. And I mean, just think about it. If you had 3 daughters and mom had this gorgeous wedding ring and she promised that to all 3 daughters, where's that ring going to go? I had an estate once where there was a daughter-in-law were made claim for it, and there was 3 daughters. They just went nuts. Well, you can have this instead, or you can have that. But if it was on what we call it is a list will, specific things for specific people on a piece of paper that has 2 signatures or a notarization on it, that works. But you got to pre-plan. I also had a couple of brothers that had their dad had a collectible car, and they were told that they could have it. And they both were told that. Well, here's the thing. They had to sell it because they fought over it for so long that they couldn't get a decision made at who was going to get it. But here's a big one. I had two brothers one time. They came to settle the estate for their folks. And they got into a heated battle. And they both left. And one went out the front door, one out the back door. Never heard from them again. Absolutely not until 20 years later. I was at a funeral. And I talked to Joe, and I said, Joe, did you guys ever get back together? Did you ever talk? He says, matter of fact, Todd, it was 3 weeks ago. We met each other in a restaurant. Didn't know we were going to be there. And we sat down and we were real gruff to each other. And we started thinking and we started talking back and forth. And he says, what were we mad at each other about? They couldn't even remember, but it was so significant
right.
at the time.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing. Yeah, my grandfather in his will, no mention of the truck, and two of the brothers, one claimed that the Grandpa Bob said he could have it. My dad thought he could have it because of things his dad said to him. So these things happen, but you want to avoid that. And having these documents. So enhanced planning, for people who are wondering what's that, and we started right in it, they'll say, sounds like you're talking about estate planning. Well, that's part of it. And it's been called legacy planning. Some people just refer to estate planning, but enhanced planning is a little more than that because you need to incorporate it. It includes communication. Estate planning is your documents, and that's included in enhanced planning. But, you're already talking about something that isn't included in most estate planning, and that's communication with everyone in the family, right?
Yeah, communication and relationship, thinking about the relationship as you're putting your plan together, because those feelings are out there. And if you can have the conversation and say, well, I want the oldest daughter to have it, that ring, and then I want her to pass it on to the oldest grandchild, such and such. At least you have a plan that's going to ease people through the transition. It's hard enough, when you lose a parent or a loved one, and then when you have to start going through their stuff I call it a family probate, because it's just stuff, and it really is. It's just stuff. It's material things that you have that get the family separated or divided somehow, some way.
Right.
And if you don't have a plan that's clearly that can be broke down, you're gonna have relationships ruined and families are going to separate.
And for the things you don't even think about, like some people say, well, I don't have, like you said at the beginning of the show, enough money. I'm not a millionaire. I don't need an estate plan. Do you have old comic books? Do you have that? Like my grandfather on my mom's side, when he passed, he had a farm, he had equipment. They had an auction and split it 3 ways because he had 3 daughters. That wasn't a problem. You know what people fought over is he was a Mason, right? He belonged to the Masons and a Freemason, and had been for years. They fought over his Mason ring.
Oh my goodness!
Isn't it funny how the little thing? I mean, they're still they remained friendly and they didn't let it get to them, but that was kind of a contention, right? So the Mason ring, and it's always something like that. And it's kind of interesting, but whenever money is involved, it changes people. And so you've got even the best of us, when money is involved, you think, well, I love my siblings. I would never argue with them. When they get $20,000 more than you do because of something, there's going to be animosity, right?
Yeah, it really is. And we can use all kinds of tools, but you got to go to the emotional side on all these things.
Yeah.
And when you do a comprehensive plan, and I'm talking comprehensive plan, and if you're working with me, the best place to start is with my Safe Money Kit, because it takes a total inventory of your stuff. And that's a good place to start. So you can always give me a call at 855-22-MONEY. You can come into the office. But if you just want to make an appointment or pick up some of my brochures, the phone number is 855-22-MONEY or 855-226-6639. Or you can go to my website, yoursafemoneyshow.com. There's lots of information there. You can see our broadcasts from past. You can see where our podcasts are going to be. You can pick up information on the show that we talk about every week, or you can just simply write me a note there and give me your contact information. I'll get back to you.
Sure.
So that's kind of where we're headed. We got more to talk about here on this, and there's a lot of things in enhanced planning. One thing for sure I want to make is understand your various ownership considerations when you're putting your plan together. Ultimately, probate process establishes the validity of your will. Is it really what you wanted? That's what probate does for you. And what does that mean? The court will decide what your intentions are of your will. And that's why we go to the enhanced version of an estate plan or a plan, is because you're breaking every iota of your inventory down and gifting that out. But contract ownership is built in beneficiary arrangements. That's what we're doing there. And that's contract law. So what does that mean? That is stronger than your will. So that the will won't interfere with that, because beneficiary designations will supersede or take precedent.
They'll take precedent over a will. So beneficiary designation on an account is going to take precedent. Even if you say the exact opposite thing in your will, it's going to go wherever that beneficiary designation says, no matter what. That's went all the way to the Supreme Court a couple of times, and they've always overruled it goes to the beneficiary designated. Even if you were married for only a year, and you started a big job at a big corporation, and you're putting all this money into your 401k, they have stock options, and your beneficiary is your first wife. You're young, you get married young, right out of high school, and you get the job, or right out of college, you get the job. And this has happened. And then you get divorced after a year because you realize it was a mistake. You both went your separate ways. Maybe it's not a good divorce. Then you get remarried, have 4 kids, and you live happily for 20 years, and then you pass away. And your wife and kids, if you never change that beneficiary designation, will not see a dime of that money, right?
Absolutely. Yep. No matter what you do, you can jump.
No matter what you said in your will or did on some other form, it's the beneficiary designation on that account, on that 401k or IRA or what have you, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a good summary of what we're talking about. And let me also add this while we're talking about enhanced planning. Enhanced planning can, in my opinion, be an extremely beneficial financial step. You should know it's not a replacement of working with an attorney or a tax professional. Consider an enhanced planning as another useful tool that you can put in your financial toolbox next to your attorney and tax professional. You're going to want to get advice for all of that stuff from the right people, especially the bigger your estate gets. This is nitpicky, and this is where you're going to be finite about who's getting what. So there's lots of things that we can talk about. And that one thing I want to really hit on is, do you need a trust? What is a trust? Do you trust? That's the big question. And I always told my clients that if you trust your children, you don't need a trust. If you don't trust your children, you need a trust. Because
it depends on how old they are and what you think is going to happen. I mean, anything can happen. You know, if you say, well, I trust my children. Well, if they're going to be, if something happens to you and they're in their 20s, I don't care who they are, you probably don't want to leave everything to them. They don't want to inherit a chunk of change when they're 21, 22 years old.
Right. And the other thing is that a trustee will uphold the wishes. They have to. They're bound to that. So you're going to get that. Another rule people don't think about a trust is, well, maybe I should say this first. You know, there's 2 types of trust. There's a revocable trust and an irrevocable trust. And right now I'm talking about an irrevocable trust.
Sure.
That's where you're putting your properties. And if you think about properties, where people get in a lot of trouble is if they have properties out of one state or another. So let's say you have a place in Arizona, you got a place in Michigan, you got a place in Minnesota. Every state has their own rules. So the best thing to do is work with a trust. So the trust gathers that property and then gives it to who you want it to. I mean, Susie might get Michigan piece. Johnny might get Minnesota piece. You know what I mean? So you can divide it inside that trust, but by having it in the trust, you won't probably have to do 2 probates. Or 3 probates, because
and those are costly. People say, "Oh, I don't want to spend the money on an estate planning attorney to write up a trust. That costs money." It's a very inexpensive cost compared to what you're going to spend if you don't do it, right? Because probate court, and attorney fees for court, and doing it multiple times is going to take a long time. So your family, it'll sit there; they won't get it right away, and it'll be costly.
Yeah, and you might have to hire 3 different attorneys because they're not all licensed in one state.
Yeah.
So you might have to have an attorney in each state to get that property placed in the right hands of who you wanted it to. So make sure that gets done.
Well, and Todd, if we probably need to take a quick break here, but before we do, I want you to let our listeners know. I know you're offering a no charge, no obligation consultation, and you said you had this packet that you would send out to our listeners or that they could pick up from you that deals with a lot of this. How can our listeners out there get that or set up that no charge consultation with you and your team?
Well, first off, you can walk downtown beautiful Mora, and you can walk in my office, and you can see my kiosk here. It has all the pamphlets and ideas and information I have. Plus, you can come in and get my Safe Money Kit. My Safe Money Kit will help you and guide you through some of the things we do, but it's a good place to start with an inventory. So it's going to talk about all your assets, what your budget is, who your beneficiaries are going to be. We're going to do a beneficiary with that, but it all is in one place so that when you come and meet with me, we have it all ready to go. We won't get everything. We'll probably miss something, but it gives us a good starting point. It'll give us a good picture of everything. And I'll list the things that will be there later in the next section of the show. But that's where to start. And you can call me at 855-22-MONEY. That's 855-226-6639. And we can make a date right there or make an appointment, whatever you like. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible, or you can go to mysafemoneyshow.com and go to my website.
Todd, the man with the plan, I really like today's show. We're talking about how to maintain family harmony by having an enhanced plan, by doing enhanced planning that includes your legacy, your estate plan, wills, trusts, and of course, powers of attorney, all included in things that you need to have. And the sooner the better. I mean, the best time to get these things in order is now, or probably 10 years ago. But there's no time like the present, right, Todd?
Yeah, as we're putting this together, you talked about power of attorney and healthcare directives and those types of things. Now, if you're a first-time listener, you probably haven't heard this from me, of course, but I do put that as a priority. I want to tell you what happened to one of my clients. This was quite a few years ago, but a husband and wife were home, and he had a heart attack. And they had to rush him down to Abbott Northwestern. And they got him down there, they got him stabilized, and they put him into the ICU unit, and he was doing well. And his healthcare directive that she knows about was do not resuscitate. He'd been through this, and he just was not going to want to go through any of that life support. He didn't want to be on the life support. You know, he wasn't going to live. So what happened is she went downstairs for something to eat. They still have a McDonald's there by golly. And she went down there for supper. And when she came back, she never dropped that off. She'd left that healthcare directive at home. This was back a few days before we had a lot of the technology we do now. But what happened is they put him on life support, and she had to come all the way back to Mora, Minnesota, get that healthcare directive. And it went
so sad.
Yeah, so far that when she turned it in, it actually had to go in front of a health board because it wasn't place before they got there. Well, that took 3 to 4 days before got the right board together or whatever had happened. And then they approved it, and he died as soon as they took him off, a few minutes later. But not only was she have to go through that hardship of watching her husband suffer, and we don't talk about life and money.
No.
But those 3 days were a little over $400,000 to keep him going back then. And that's how important it is to have those documents ready to go. Not only the hardship and the emotions, but it is a financial burden on everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's part of this.
Terrible. I mean, you want to avoid that at all costs. So you have to have this in place, and that really illustrates that. Yeah, and that was so long ago, but it's so envisioned in my head how important it is to have those power of attorney and healthcare directives at your hand. And today we have the web, or the cloud. You can put them in a cloud. So if you're down in the cities and you need one, you can pull it up on your phone and have it printed off. Back then, we didn't have anything called the cloud. And I'm still not sure if I understand where this cloud is, but I know I store a lot of pictures in it right now and a lot of documents in it. And I know my clients do, but it's still important. If you don't have it, you don't have it. Right. So making sure when we do our inventory and we get you working on your new plan, that's going to be one of the things we're going to have in your enhanced planning. Yeah. You gotta have those documents where you can access them easily. I know that the Generational Vault is great for people to use. That's where they can upload these and have them all there accessible. And I think that's important. And you need this. You don't know what you don't know, and having somebody like yourself there to answer any questions. If something like this comes up, if they work with you regularly, you know their situation. I think that's great. Yeah. And you don't currently, if you don't have an attorney, many financial service professionals would be able to recommend one. If you're not working with me, this isn't a one-man show. And I guess that's another thing I want to get across. If you have a large estate or you have questions and concerns and legal opinions, reach out to the right people. And here's what's going to happen is that when you get all this done, I mean, I can look at my clients that come in, the first time they're sitting there and they're kind of fidgety in their chair and they got their papers there and they don't know what I'm going to do. And we start building a relationship and we get the information out and we start giving illustrations and what we have here and what we have there. And then the day comes, maybe we've met 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, whatever it takes to get this accomplished. That final meeting, when we do the complete review of all of your plan, number one is sometimes I get tears, but most of the time I get a soft smile and I see their shoulders just melt and say, we're done. We have our plan in place. Yeah, you'll sleep better at night. I'll tell you that. But if I do anything, and I enjoy this business as much as I do, that's what I want to see happen. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is when I see a family come in for a review after a parent has died. Yeah. And they come in and say, Todd, we didn't have to hardly do anything. That's a victory for me. And that's what an enhanced planning guide will do for you. I mean, it really will. That death will occur. Your plans are in place and you can move forward. Yeah. You don't want to leave your loved ones in a bad situation. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, you have so many things to talk about when we come in because you have your investments. You have different investments. I mean, my record client had 42 different bank accounts. We spent 6 months. He was a traveling salesman, and everywhere he'd get a check, he'd open up a bank account. Oh, my goodness. So he was back there. So we tracked it down and lost money and bank accounts and closed accounts and government bonds, and we looked everything up. But it took us about 8 months. Wow. And I'll tell you, it wasn't a lot of money when we were done, but he had $50 here, he had $100 here, he had $1,000 there. It was just the craziest thing we ever did. So what am I saying? There's
you really need to have inventory.
Yeah.
And if you're getting up in age, maybe get to 2 accounts, maybe 1 account
Yes.
where you know where your money is.
Yeah.
But so that's something. And then you have to have insurance policies that are understandable and you know where they are. Don't just have insurance to have insurance. Understand what your insurance is going to do for you. And then we have, the government. You got to keep your taxes straight. You got to have those documents. Yeah, you got to know where your will is.
Yeah.
Your trust,
Yeah.
your medical information directive. We talked about how important that is. And then, of course, power of attorney.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know this, but you have to have power of attorney over your own spouse.
Yeah.
If you don't, you actually have to go get guardianship from a judge.
Yeah.
And you have to
Crazy.
pay the fee for the attorney, and it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months.
Court
Yeah.
fee, attorney fees, and time. And and that's if they become incapacitated, you need to make sure you have a power of attorney for your spouse. And, maybe your oldest child, you might want to give power of attorney to, or if you have adult children.
Yeah, secondary power of attorney is always good to have, because if something happened to both of you, you need something. I always say, if you can hide your own Easter eggs, you better have a power of attorney.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. It's time.
Yeah.
Because a spouse, you can't even get into a 401k of your spouse if you don't have that power of attorney. And I always look at a nursing home. If you're sitting in a nursing home and you need to sell the home because you want to be closer to your husband, and you might need some money to pay the bills because you didn't do that planning, you can't sell that house without his signature in the state of Minnesota. So you have to have that power of attorney to even function as a couple. So that is a very necessary document. And of course, those can be all stored in the cloud we talked about.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a storage cloud. So if you need it, you got it and it's ready to go. And that's why we have an enhanced estate plan, because we're going to guide you through all of those issues and make sure they're in place.
Yeah. And that's important. And again, in order to maintain family harmony, in order to make sure that you do not leave your loved ones in a bad situation, you need to have an enhanced plan in place, and it needs to include a estate plan. Look at your legacy, and it's not just your accounts and major assets, but that's very important, but also other things, other valuables, and you need to make a list of those. And I know your Safe Money Kit helps people list their assets and the important things, and they need to fill that out. I think that's really, really great. So before we go, I know we're going to let people know how they can get that. Our listeners, I know you're anxious to help people out. You love to educate. That's why we do the show each week. And you're more than happy to meet with our listeners, because a lot of them will have questions after hearing this show, Todd.
Absolutely. And that's the main thing. Hopefully get your curiosity up. And if you can actually just come in and sit down with me, I can answer a lot of those questions for you. And you can make an appointment at 855-22-MONEY. That's 855-226-6639. Or go to yoursafemoneyshow.com, or just come down to beautiful downtown Mora and stop in and say hi, have a cup of coffee, and maybe that would be the first icebreaker for you.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. And I know you love it when people stop by. Maybe you can grab a cup of coffee, and you and your staff there do such a great job. You've helped so many people in the community here. And you just, I know that you love to talk to people, and you help your clients out with all of this. And I just can't imagine navigating enhanced planning and estate planning without working with somebody like yourself, who's looking at the big picture and working alongside an estate planning attorney to make sure that your financial plan, your overall retirement plan, it's all incorporated with things like Social Security, taxes, IRAs, your required minimum distributions. How are you going to pass things along? How is that going to affect your loved ones, and what kind of impact will it have on them? So we've really had a great discussion today, Todd. One more time before we go, give that phone number and web address for our listeners.
Yeah, it's 855-22-MONEY. That's 855-226-6639, or yoursafemoneyshow.com. And remember, if I can't prove it, don't do it.
All right. Thanks, Todd. And that does it for today's episode of Your Safe Money Show with our host, Todd Schoberg.
We're here to help you succeed on Your Safe Money Show.
Brought to you by Schoberg and Holmstrom Financial Services in Mora. Call 855-22-MONEY.